In the quiet village of Kenga, there lived a woman named Nwachi. She never laughed, never wept, and barely said a word. Her hut stood alone at the very edge of the village, pressed up against the thick shadows of Okuru Forest. But it wasn't. A silence that made the villagers fear her. They said she gathered the eyes of the dead. No one knew why. But each time someone passed on, before their burial could take place, their eye sockets would be found hollow, completely empty. At night, strange flickers of light danced through the cracks in Nwachi's walls, and whispers spread like harmattan. "Wind through the village, keep your children away from her," the elders warned. "She has made a pact with something that sees in the dark." They believed her hut held rows of clay jars, each one sealed tight, each one filled with souls that could no longer see. Some claimed they had caught glowing eyes staring out from her hut's window like fireflies in a jar, but no one could prove it. No one dared go near. All they knew was that whenever someone died, their eyes always vanished, and always at night. That was enough to make every villager walk faster past her hut, heads down, lips sealed. One quiet evening, a boy named Tobena sat cross-legged outside his father's hut, listening as the elders whispered by the fire. They were speaking of Nwachi again. His heart buzzed with questions. What did she do with those eyes? Was it really true, or just something to scare children? His friend, Chimka, leaned in close and nudged his elbow. "Let's find out," he whispered. Tobena's heart thumped. He knew it was dangerous, but the mystery tugged at his soul like a fishing line pulling at a river perch. He looked down the dusty path that led toward Nwachi's hut. The moon was full, casting silver pools of light over the village. If they moved quietly, they could follow her unseen. So they waited, until the last oil lamps dimmed, and even the wind seemed to sleep. Only the chirping of night crickets filled the air as they slipped from the shadows. Their bare feet padded silently over the earth, their breath tight in their chests. When they reached Nwachi's hut, they ducked low behind a fallen log. A faint light glowed from inside. Then, movement. A tall shadow shifted at the doorway. Nwachi. She was holding something wrapped in old cloth, like a bundle of fruit or bones. Her head turned slowly, scanning the darkness. Then, without a sound, she stepped into the forest. The boys shared a look, then followed. They crept through the vines and tree roots of Okuru Forest, staying low, their eyes never leaving her pale silhouette ahead. The trees loomed above like giants holding secrets, their leaves rustling in low whispers. Nwachi moved quickly, but never looked back. Tobena and Chimka hurried to keep up, stepping only where she had stepped. Then she stopped. The boys froze behind a wide trunk, peeking just enough to see. She knelt before a stone altar, etched with swirling symbols neither boy had seen before. Vines curled around its base, and the ground around it was bare, as if even weeds refused to grow there. Nwachi unwrapped her bundle. 2 human eyes tumbled out onto the mossy ground. Chimka gasped. Tobena's heart nearly leapt from his chest. What was she doing? She raised her hands and began to chant. Low, breathless, otherworldly. The earth beneath the altar rumbled softly. The carved stone split with a sudden crack, and from within the fissure, a thin mist began to seep, hissing like boiling water. The boys couldn't move. Their feet felt nailed to the earth. Then it formed, a face shifting in the mist. Its eyes were hollow, black holes where sight should be. A voice drifted from it, deep, dry like leaves scraped across stone. "Have you brought what I seek?" Nwachi nodded. The mist face hovered, its lips twitching. "More," it demanded. "I must have more." She gently picked up the eyes and placed them into the open crack. A dull glow pulsed inside. The mist let out a long, quivering sigh, like someone who had been underwater and finally breathed. The tremor stopped. The crack closed. Nwachi turned to go. The boys ducked quickly behind the tree, hands over their mouths. What had they seen? What was Nwachi feeding? They didn't wait to find out. They ran all the way back to the village. Only when they reached Elder Zuberi's hut did they stop, gasping for air, their chests burning. "We have to tell him," Tobena said between breaths. Chimka nodded, eyes wide. They knocked on the old man's door. A moment later, Elder Zuberi, hunched and wrapped in goat wool, opened it with sleepy eyes. "What are you two doing out so late?" he asked, rubbing his beard. The boys poured everything out, the missing eyes, the glowing jars, the forest altar, the face in the mist, the chanting, everything. Zuberi listened without saying a word, his face slowly tightening like dry leather. When they finished, he stepped back and sighed. "You have seen what was never meant for young eyes," he murmured, "and now she will know." The boys stiffened. "Who will know?" Chimka asked in a whisper. Elder Zuberi's gaze grew dark. "Nwachi is not just a woman," he said. "She is the handmaiden of the Sightless One, a spirit who once saw all things, past and future. But the gods cursed him, leaving him blind between the world of the living and the dead." He paused. "He needs the eyes of the dead to see again. Even if only for a moment." Tobena's stomach turned. "Then she's helping him?" he asked. Zuberi nodded. "And if she learns you watched her feed the seer of shadows, she will come for your eyes next." A cold wind swept through Kenga, making the huts shiver and the trees groan. The boys huddled close, their eyes fixed. On the dirt path that led back into the darkened Okuru Forest, Tobena's lips trembled. "What now?" he asked softly. Elder Zuberi's voice came low and grim. "You must leave at first light. Go to your kin in the neighboring village. If she doesn't find you, she might never know what you saw." But Chimka clenched his fists. "We can't run," he whispered. "We have to stop her." Zuberi let out a heavy sigh. "Your hearts are strong. But if you choose to face her, be ready for what comes next." By dawn, Tobena and Chimka had made their choice. They wouldn't abandon Kenga to darkness. Even if it meant standing alone, they would stop Nwachi. Before they left, Elder Zuberi handed them a tiny leather pouch. Inside, a pale powder shimmered faintly. "This is the ash of the sacred Obalu tree," Zuberi said. "The spirit hates it. And touch. If you throw it at him, he will retreat. But the effect fades fast, so use it wisely." Tobena nodded and tucked the pouch into his belt. As the sun dipped below the hills that evening, the boys crouched behind a mound near Nwachi's hut. Their fingers gripped the pouch tightly. Not even the frogs croaked tonight. The air was too still. Then, there she was. Nwachi emerged, cloaked in black, holding a cloth bundle to her chest. They didn't need to guess what it held. The eyes of the freshly dead. She glided toward the woods, her robe trailing behind like dark mist. Tobena exhaled shakily. "This is it," he whispered. They had to stop her before she fed the seer again. They trailed her deep into Okuru Forest, the trees towering above like silent ancestors. Her footsteps barely touched the ground. She walked as if drawn forward by the forest itself. One wrong step, and they'd be caught. Suddenly, she stopped. The boys slipped behind a tree, peering through hanging vines. Before her stood the stone altar. Again, its carvings glowing faintly under the moonlight like breath in cold air. The crack in the stone pulsed faintly, waiting. Nwachi unwrapped her bundle. Two blood-slicked eyes rolled into her palm. Their sheen was fresh, wet. Chimka almost vomited. She raised her hand to offer the sacrifice, but before she could place them in the stone, Tobena leapt out. With one swift motion, he flung the sacred ash straight at the altar. The ground shuddered. A high-pitched shriek ripped through the forest, not human, not animal. The face in the mist twisted and wailed, a mouth stretched in agony. Nwachi stumbled back, gasping. "Who dares?" she spat. Chimka emerged beside Tobena, clutching a thick branch. "We know what you're doing," he shouted. "We won't let you keep feeding that thing." Nwachi's face darkened, her voice now a whisper of rage. Foolish children, you have no idea what you've done." The wind howled violently through the trees, and then silence. The crack in the stone yawned open again. From the gap, black tendrils unfurled like smoke given life. Long hands made of shadow. They surged toward the boys. Tobena jumped back just in time, barely avoiding the grasp of one clawed limb. The mist screamed louder, growing, swirling into a monstrous shape. The seer's mouth opened wide, stretching toward them. "The eyes!" it bellowed. "Give me the eyes!" Nwachi spun to face Tobena, her face twisted with fury. "You should have stayed away," she hissed. She raised her hand, and every torch around the forest path blew out. The night swallowed them whole. "Run!" Chimka shouted, panic rising in his chest, but Tobena stood firm. "No! We end this now!" He grabbed another handful of ash and hurled it, this time at Nwachi. The powder hit her skin and sizzled like fire. She screamed, clutching her face. The spirit behind her wailed. Its form flickered violently, breaking apart like smoke in a storm. "You don't understand," Nwachi cried, stumbling. "I kept it bound. Without me there is nothing stopping it." Tobena froze. What if she was telling the truth? But it was already too late. The seer broke loose. Tobena felt the air squeeze from his lungs. "Then we have to stop it," he said, voice firm. "Once and for all." Chimka's jaw tightened. "Then we find Nwachi." For days they searched the village and beyond, the trees, the rivers, the trails through Okuru Forest. But Nwachi was gone. No trace, no whispers, nothing. Some said she disappeared into the earth itself. Others believed the spirit dragged her with it into the mist. "We need her," Tobena insisted. "She's the only one who understands this thing." Elder Zuberi shook his head sadly. "If she lives, it's because she doesn't wish to be found." Chimka's eyes glowed brighter. "Then we do this alone." Tobena's heart pounded. "How?" Chimka looked toward the forest. "We go back. To the stone. The answers are there." They returned to Okuru, the night pressing down like a heavy curtain. Their torches flickered against the twisted trees. The stone altar stood waiting, its carvings now deeper, more jagged, as if it had cracked open a second time. The air was ice, the silence alive. "It knows we're here," Chimka whispered. He placed his hand on the stone. Suddenly, the world bent around them. A vision swallowed Tobena's mind. He saw Nwachi kneeling before the spirit's mist. She wept, her voice trembling. "What are you?" And the spirit replied, barely more than a breath, "I am the memory of the forgotten. I see what others wish to forget." The vision vanished. Both boys stumbled back, gasping. Chimka held his head. "It doesn't want eyes," Tobena blinked. "Then, what does it want?" Memories. They stared at one another. Tobena spoke slowly. "So, the spirit feeds on people's pasts?" Chimka nodded. "Yes, on secrets, on things buried, deep," Tobena whispered. "Then why the eyes?" Chimka's voice dropped. "Because eyes hold the truth. Even in death, what the heart hides, the eyes remember." Suddenly, branches rustled behind them. They turned fast, ready to run, but stopped. A woman stepped from the shadows. It was Nwachi. She looked frail, her once powerful frame now thin, her voice barely there. "You shouldn't have come." Chimka stepped forward. "We need answers." Nwachi's eyes dimmed. "It's too late." Tobena's voice cracked. "Why?" She stared at Chimka, her lips trembling. "Because the spirit has already chosen." "Chosen? What?" Chimka asked, stepping back. "A new host." Tobena's breath caught. "Who?" She turned her tired gaze on Chimka. "You." Chimka stumbled back. "No, no, I won't let it take me." But Nwachi shook her head gently. "It already has. The night you shattered it, a part of it entered you. That's why you hear it. That's why you see what no one else sees." Tobena's voice shook. "Then how do we end this?" Nwachi's. Eyes grew heavy. You must decide. Let it fully take you or destroy it from the inside. Chimka swallowed. How? She stepped closer, sorrow deep in her eyes. You must give up the one thing it craves. He stared. My eyes. She nodded. Only by removing them will it lose its grip. Without your sight, it can't live. Within you. Tabena stepped between them. No, there has to be another way. But time was slipping fast. The air grew thick again. The wind screamed in the trees. Chimka closed his eyes. He had fought so hard to defeat the seer. But now, this was the final battle. I'll do it, he whispered. No, Tabena begged, grabbing his arm. We'll find something else. But Chimka had made peace. He lifted the sacred knife from Nwachi's satchel and took a trembling breath. Promise. Me, he told Tabena, you'll remember who I was. Tears streamed down Tabena's face. I promise. Chimka pressed the blade gently to his eyelids. As the metal touched his skin, the spirit screamed. The air cracked. A violent burst of black mist erupted from Chimka's chest, twisting and thrashing like a creature in death. It rose above them, shrieking. Then it shattered. The darkness vanished. Silence returned. Chimka collapsed. His eyes now closed forever. The first light of dawn crept through the trees. Tabena held his friend tightly. Nwachi bowed her head. It is over. The villagers came running, their eyes wide with relief and grief. Elder Zuberi knelt beside. Chimka placing a hand on his shoulder. You saved us all. Chimka's voice was barely a whisper. Can I still see? Tabena squeezed his hand. You see more than any of us. They had lost a pair of eyes, but gained a new kind of vision. Years passed. Chimka became Kenga's greatest seer, guiding the people with dreams only he could feel. Tabena remained beside him always, honoring the sacrifice, keeping the memory alive. The spirit never returned, and the story of the woman who took the eyes of the dead became nothing more than legend. But some nights, when the wind stirred the forest, a whisper still rose. I see you. And deep in, the trees where the old stone remained, two glowing eyes watched, still, forever remembering what the world tried to forget.